other people. And
Mhm.
as more people get involved with this, they awaken and so forth. For me, being a former military guy, I uh, I, I have repressed memories of stuff that they put us through, MK Ultra programs and all kind of crazy stuff. So I'm awakening to all that as well, and so are a lot of other veterans. And unfortunately, a lot of those veterans, when they start to awaken to it, they don't understand and they commit suicide. So
Mm.
this is one of the things I think that all of us, regardless of what area of life you're in, can benefit from. So let's jump in.
So I love what you just said, Michael, about the vets too. You had a vet on, Nathan, and I honestly can't think of his last name, but he has longer dark hair, and you were talking to him about his experiences. He had talked about when he was in the military that they would go into his mind for his memories, and to erase them, they would electrocute. They'd find the memory and electrocute it. And that's what they did with me too when I was little in the labs underground at the U.S. University Medical Centers. After each session, I would have to, in vivid detail, tell them what just happened to me, and they would watch it in a monitor. I was hooked up to equipment and wires and things. They'd find the memory and they'd electrocute it, they'd fry it, thinking that I would never remember again. It's the same tactics used on the children, underground, the adults, and the military. It's a very coordinated thing. So you're right. When we each share, we can connect the dots.
Mhm.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's incredible.
it's going to be extremely important for people who weren't subject to this kind of mind control and torture, and to begin to help us put the dots together, because we've all got blanks. The worst of the memories are extremely difficult to access and may never be accessed if they actually were electrically or drug induced removed. And but this has to be put together. And the reason for so many of us coming out now is because the CIA just admitted to everything in the national security documents, the National Security Archive, which is at George Washington University now. And the fact that everyone who starts to remember is at risk for running directly into a suicide program. And that was put into all of us. And I think that's a lot of why you see PTSD induces so much suicide in vets, is that they run right into that program and they are physically capable of suiciding themselves, whereas an ordinary person like myself would have to plot it out and it would take some time. The vets can just respond like that. And there's going to be a lot more of that when people finally do discover that the government has admitted to doing all of it. So people, when they start to remember, they're at risk of having all of it flood over them, and at that point they trigger a suicide program. But you don't have to. You can stop it right at that point, and that's what we have to teach therapists and we have to teach survivors, is that you can control it.
Wow, that's a very good point, because I never even thought of, they actually program in a suicide into the memory.
Yeah.
If something gets triggered, that makes incredible sense. So again, like we're talking about, becoming aware of this, like you incredible ladies are doing, helping people become aware of it. And then it could be a life or death situation for some people,
especially vets.
Yeah, especially vets. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Who could actually pick up a weapon and do something with it.
But I'm sure it's, laced within all of these programs. Both of you were in a child program, and it's probably a lot easier to MK Ultra a child than it is an adult. Or what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. That's the most vulnerable time and the most irreversible time. And I went into the program at 6. I know Lynn went in even earlier. So that's when the physical aspects of your brain are forming, your psyche is forming, your ability to form relationships is being created, and they damage all of that. And that's the goal, is to separate you, isolate you, create compartmentalization of your mind, and then control your memories. So I was there at the very beginning. It got more sophisticated as it went on, but the core program is the same, and the people that started it were were Nazis who were brought to the United States after the Nuremberg trials, and my family was very highly involved in that. And so instead of killing the scientists from the concentration camps, they brought them to America, and they were given access to American children. And the results, we're seeing it today. You know, it's not like, okay, it was 60 years ago, so it's not important. Well, those people that went through the program as children 60 years ago are now running the country. So I think we've got to look at this very seriously and correct this as much as we can, and look at where these people have gone. Once they're through the program, they become manipulatable and mind control slaves, basically, and then they're promoted into positions in government, positions in corporations, positions in education, and so we now have a society that makes no sense.
Yeah. So we have like you're talking about Operation Paperclip, which brought over this technology, this understanding of how to control and manipulate the mind.
And the Nazis brought the people.
The Nazis that were actually involved in
doing it. Yeah.
Doing it. Yeah. And so how long do you think the Nazis were involved in it? How long does this technology go back, do you believe?
Well, we know for sure they were doing it at the turn of the 20th century. And then in the 1930s, when the Fool Society and other societies that created the mythology that sort of drew people into Nazism, it was very active then, to the point where a group of them even went to Turkey and disassembled the Temple of Pergamon, which is one of the 7 churches of Asia, which John had identified as the seat of Satan. And they went to Turkey and took the whole church and took it to Berlin. It's still there. Wow. So if you want to see one of the surviving churches of Asia from Revelation, it's in Berlin. So heavily invested in finding Satan, creating man as Superman, putting man above God, and seeking out. They had a couple of layers. They had the children who were the sons and daughters of leadership and people they considered bright and talented, and then they brought in others that they just used horribly, and then never expected them to survive. They didn't expect many of us to survive either, and hence the suicide program. And I think most have probably committed suicide.
Wow.
So
I did several shows with Robert David Steele, and he talked about some of these programs. If you ladies don't mind, I'll play a little clip. It just came up again, where he talks about he's former CIA, former military, just like me, and he says children are being bred and sold dark truth about the Child Protective Services and so forth. So I'll play this little clip and then we'll discuss it.
These children are not just kidnapped and in some cases bred by families as a cash crop. We have people in the United States of America that breed children in order to sell them. And when they are sold, they come without birth certificates, which means it's easier to kill them and have no one ask where they are. We're also importing children by the plane load. Again, children who have no documentation. It's not just child slavery or child sex abuse. It's also child torture, because you have adrenalized blood. You have the whole blood drinking ceremony of the satanic world. It's also the use of children for harvesting body organs. And then you have ritual ceremonies and ritual murder, as well as incidental murder. Most organizations that end up being used to prey on children, Oxfam is a recent example. All of the United Nations organizations, the Boy Scouts of America, all of the child services agencies across the United States of America, they did not start out as organizations to prey on children, but they attract pedophiles. And ultimately, pedophiles end up rising in the ranks and controlling those organizations, so that an organization that initially started out in the service of children becomes an organization that is in fact hunting children. These children are not just.
All right, so let's get your comments on that little Robert Davis Steele.
Sometimes be helpful
I did
because
a
the
couple shows
contraction
with
of the
him,
calf muscles.
and he was very revealing. And we're supposed to do some some events together, and unfortunately, he came down with COVID-19, went to the hospital, and never came out alive. So not surprising, right? But a lot of people that have revealed have had that situation. So he went into a lot of different areas that many people have been discussing. Pedophilia within the high ranks of political establishment and in business and so forth, and adrenochrome use, child sacrifice, organ harvesting. Lynn, you've mentioned some of this in some of the discussions that we've had.
Yes.
So, Dr. Juliet, what are your thoughts on that? And then we'll go over to you, Lynn, and let you wrap it up.
Well, I think he was absolutely honest, and what he said is true. And at that time when he was talking, he didn't have the benefit of the release of the National Security Archive, which basically proved everything he's saying is true. It doesn't cover the adrenochrome, but I know they were doing adrenochrome when I was a child. I would say I was in that group that was bred to be put into the program. So no, he spoke the truth there. And unless we confront this, and unless we fix this, unless we do something about this, and if you look at the first 4 verses of Revelation, it talks about no, you cannot tolerate sin. You can these things you cannot tolerate. You can't be lukewarm about being the seed of Satan. The Lord will destroy you. So we have to fix this if we want to become a civilizational state. I mean, things are falling apart to the point where we're going to be choosing probably in the next year or so what kind of civilization America is going to be. Because it can't be the same. It can't continue like this. We can't have pedophiles in charge, although we do. And we have to have major, huge changes, which means people like Lynn and me and you have to get very healed and healthy and strong and able to fight this. And it's a personal journey as well as a national journey.
Excellent. Beautiful. And Lynn, what are your thoughts?
So everything he was saying, I lived. And what people call conspiracy theory, I call my childhood. The adrenochrome harvesting was in the child trafficking house, and the adrenochrome harvesting was in the labs underneath the U.S. University Medical Center, as was the organ harvesting. The Hitler-Heimler research in Germany was when they imported those scientists, was what I lived, because it was all not just it's the largest money generating operation for the deep state that there is, but they were experimenting on the children back in the concentration camps, and they brought it over here. In the documents that Dr. Juliet's talking about, I read a lot of those because they talk about the U.S. University medical centers and how the CIA they wanted the best of the best of our medical professionals to experiment on U.S. citizens to do MK Ultra mind control. They said the first few they asked thought that there were ethical problems with torturing U.S. citizens, but they said past the first few, our medical professionals were eager, they said, to go where no man had gone before, into the human mind. They started listing names of universities: Cornell, Georgetown, Oklahoma, Emory University. This is a list in the document. I was on Emma Catherine's, she does long interviews of survivors. So far, the survivors have listed 13 additional universities that this is happening at. So it is and this is in the United States, although it's worldwide. And that includes the children and the adults. Our government paid for it. And when the CIA was caught in I think it was the 1980s, when our friend Kathy O'Brien testified, they basically said, oops, never mind, didn't mean it, we won't do it again. Fast forward, in 1995, there's a woman, I've been introduced to so many people. She was doing MK Ultra experiments in the prisons here in the United States. And she said in 1995, while now, not the truther community, but while others are saying there's no such thing as remote viewing and mind control, the CIA, our government, merged those two departments. So in 1995, MK Ultra and remote viewing, and they were merged together. So it's very much still alive and well, all of this. 3M has the patent for adrenochrome.
Wow.
Yeah, you can go on the dark web and buy it for $7,000 for a vial.
But does it still have, like, the adrenaline that from a child that's been, traumatized? I guess they enjoy that a lot. I've actually had people on my show that have talked about adrenochrome use and how it basically transports them into different dimensional awareness, where they meet demons and they look in the future, all kinds of crazy stuff. So does lab grown adrenochrome give people the same I guess benefits?
I wouldn't go near it.
You would know. Yeah, I know. I wouldn't want to do a study on that, but and I don't think we're going to have anybody show up anytime soon to discuss the qualities of each. But yeah, it is amazing that it is actually produced. So
it's commercially produced, yeah, and you can buy it.
Yeah,
it's not illegal.
So Dr. Juliet, I mean, it's hard for people to fathom that parents would subject their child to this. But we've seen that with Kathy O'Brien. Lynn has spoken about that. It's almost to the point where Lynn's mom was in denial as well. How about your parents? Both CIA, I think both were involved in the CIA, and
yes,
were they treating you for this?
My uncle was one of the founders of the NSA, and all of his uncles, my great uncles, were CIA, OSS, and a long history. In the bloodline families, they did this repeatedly, and blood was very important. So interbreeding, incest, children of incest were prized. So I believe, really bred for this. In fact, when my father took me to the first annex, the first safe house where they left me for the blood extraction and my first sessions of being raped, I was begging for him to help me. And he turned to me and said, "No, this is what I raised you for." And I've never taken that seriously. I mean, really looked at the words, and I think it's true. I was bred for this. And my parents did make money on me. And it's a very hard thing to admit about your own life.
I can imagine. Wow.
Yeah, it made me a tiger for saving other lives, because this is wrong. This is just absolutely wrong. We cannot survive as a species doing this. This is just unspeakable.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, Lynn, you also spoke about this being, passed on to, they somewhat knew you were doing, this was going on.
Yes, so there's Kathy O'Brien speaks eloquently about this too, but there was generational pedophilia on my mother's side going back, I have no idea how long. And when that harms someone so bad mentally, why some people come out of this harming others and some don't, I don't understand. But she came out of, she hated me from the time I was born until the day I died. And until the day she died. And the child trafficking house was in the neighborhood, so she willingly sent me there. I know that they gave her money, but she would have done it for free. And I specifically remember when the government employee, that likely CIA, would come for me. They called the university going to camp, and when he would come and pick me up in the car to take me, I would watch my mom write a check so that she could stay in denial and pretend I was going to camp. But she was fully aware of what was going on. And I remember on my third birthday, the absolute worst thing that can happen to a child occurred on that day. And I remember I went home and I decided to run away. And I had a little suitcase. As a matter of fact, I'll just show it while we're.
We still have it.
This is the
Oh
only
my
thing.
goodness.
It's the only
Wow.
thing I've kept from my childhood.
Oh
I
my
never knew why I kept it, Michael. You know, one of these days I'm going to put your face, Michael, and Tracy Joe and SG and all the people that got me out of this mess, you know, because, but I kept this my whole life and I never knew why until the repressed memory started. So that day was so horrific that I had somehow learned at 3 years old on my birthday that I could run away from home. So I took this and I didn't know to pack it. And I went to the sidewalk and there I stood because no one had taught me how to cross the street. And I didn't know, it's pitiful. And I didn't know
Mm.
how to cross the street. And so my mom, when she saw what was going on, she marched me right back over to the house. And I remember she said, she is starting to learn to run away. You better do something about this. And
Wow.
then the torture that ensued was beyond the pale because I'm confident the man in charge was military, former military, from a lot of the torture devices and things that they did. But yeah, you know, it's hard for people to fathom a parent doing that. But I learned one of the many healing things that the Lord had me do was to go to Al-Anon, which is for people who have friends and family who are alcoholics. And I learned there that family members have to earn the title. Just because someone's called mom doesn't mean they're a mom. They have to earn that, and she never earned it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And Dr. Juliet, I know you ran away too, and that's how you became a doctor. You basically ran away from that program, got away, and became a doctor. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when I was in the program for 11 years. I went in at the age of 6. At the age of 17, I was maturing. I knew I wasn't going to go off to college. I was destined to become basically the same as Kathy O'Brien, to become a whore for the CIA. I knew that was my future if I stayed. And I did a whole lot of maneuvering. I did my first big PSYOP and got myself accepted early to the University of Washington by stealing my parents' bank records and forging their signatures and faking letter. I mean, it was a great campaign. It's all in my book, Sparky. But I got myself accepted a year early to the University of Washington. Then I just had to get there. And I escaped from a party at what's now Esalen in Monterey, which is this beautiful spa. But then it was called Murphy Hot Springs. And it was a mud spring in the middle of a cornfield. And it's where they, with barbed wire all around, it's where they brought record executives to like promote new bands. This was in the early not early 7, it would have been 1966. So it was John Phillips was there, John Sebastian, a whole lot of people that you would know. And my job was to be in the backup band with Charlie Manson, by the way. He was one of the musicians. Yeah. They had him on release from a program on Foster Island, and he filled in for drums and guitar, and he was sort of the nerdy tech guy. But anyway, he was in the band. I was in the band. I was dancing with barely any clothes on, and my job was to get the record execs who were coming into this party high on LSD, get them naked, get them photographed, and that was my job. And I wanted no more of it. And my handler came through the fence, which kept us locked in his little red convertible, and passed out. So I jumped in the car. I couldn't get him out of the car, and took off with him in the car, and basically drove almost all the way to Seattle. I had to stop and get on a bus, and there were several steps, but that was it. That was the end. I got myself to the University of Washington, showed up the first day looking like what I thought a co-ed should look like, and forgot everything. So had no memory at all of anything before that until I was 30.
Wow. So the early Epstein program, that's incredible.
Well, yeah, he offered me a job in 1988.
Epstein did?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they were just starting to put together an island resort for foreign leaders And at that time, I had a tech company, and I was a radiologist in Seattle and doing ultrasound, and they wanted to know if they could hide data about people and transmit it secretly through medical reports. It was
Wow.
98, 88, so it's like pre a lot of the computer, was just the beginning. So anyway, I didn't take the
So-
job.
You just ran away. In your mind, you're just running away from. You thought you were going to be like used in a way you didn't want to be used, but were your memories still repressed, or were they still trying to tap you? It sounds like they're still trying to tap you.
I think they were trying to tap me, and I was
Yeah.
so blocked. I still couldn't remember anything. Nothing was familiar. I behaved sometimes. I did things that didn't make sense to me, that I think were programmed in, including going to Russia. I wound up going to Russia for 20 years.
God, yeah, we got to talk about that. That's fascinating.
Yeah. And that was programmed into me, and when I was quite
Wow.
young, and actually was my uncle's connections that got me to Russia. So I never fully escaped, but I never acknowledged the memories. And I think even now I'm denying an awful lot of what happened.
Wow, I can, yeah, probably. Now, Lynn, when did your memories eventually start to awaken?
It was 2011, 2012. Well, whenever I turned 5 and it all ended, I call it a brain white, but God erased 95% of my memory. And so I remembered 5%. It was just gone, just like Juliet said, just gone. And, you know, once I was free. But I always knew something was seriously wrong with me my whole life. Just couldn't figure out what. But that enabled me to quasi function until life progressed, and I finally got to where I knew I was safe in this house, living alone. And I was at my makeup mirror one day, and the first repressed memory hit, and it dropped me to my knees. I remember being assaulted in my crib. And when a repressed memory hits, it all your senses are engaged as if you were right back there. So I could feel my body as a baby. I could see the man. I could see the shirt. I could tell you the intricate. It's like a photographic memory. The intricate detail, the shirt, the buttons, the all of it. My body would feel the same. The fear and terror would come back, and I ended up in a crying heap on the floor. Could not believe, and I thought, that can't be. No one would do that to a baby. No one would do that to a child. And so I was a mess for quite a while, but I had someplace to go that day. And I was driving in the car, and I was talking to God about it. And I said, you know what? I could have lived a lifetime without that one. You know, we could have held that. Little did I know that was like the first of, you know. And I looked up, which is a good thing to do when you're in trouble. And there was a billboard, and all it said was, "It's never too late." And that's when the healing began. That's when, because it's never too late. So that first repressed memory, I've come to know, was God's way of saying, it's okay now, Lynn, you're safe. And I'm going to start bringing, God held my memories, my soul in his hand. While my body stayed here, he kept the real me. And this is how I describe it. He kept it all till I got safe. And now one by one, he releases them. I just had a horrific one this week come back, had no idea. And one by one, when I'm ready to handle it, it starts coming back.
Incredible. So both of you have talked about tunnels and perhaps DUMBs, deep underground molecular bases. I don't know if you've experienced those or not, but tunneling systems, especially underneath a lot of these universities, Lynn, like you've talked about. Dr. Juliet, what are your thoughts on the tunnels?
Oh, it's significant. I was often taken down into tunnels. At the time that I remember the tunnels the best, we were living in Southern California, and I was taken into tunnels under Disneyland. So Disneyland opened, I think, in 1955 or 56.
Yeah,
and
70-year anniversary. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was taken there for all kinds of procedures and lessons and classes, and we were trained by in the crowds at Disneyland. We had to learn how to to attract people and get them compromised so they could be
Wow.
photographed. I mean, it was and if we didn't do that, then we didn't go home. And so it was a bizarre world, but it always you always wound up in a tunnel. There was another, with these fires, the California fires, they talk about Laurel Canyon and the tunnels. In Laurel Canyon, definitely there. But there are multiple tunnels. That's a web of tunnels there through Topanga Canyon, Tabrooka Canyon, El Toro. I think there's like 15 canyons. And I was watching how when they were burning, when the fires were raging in Southern California, the fire department sort of stood around where I know the tunnels were and let them burn. So I think they were burning evidence. They were burning whatever was in those tunnels. It was just too perfect.
Wow.
Because the fire would go up to buildings that I know were involved in the human trafficking and stop, but whatever was underground was burning.
Yeah.
So I have no way of proving that, but just looking at it.
I think you're right. I think that I think there's a group of people that are, we call them white hats, that are trying to overcome this dark side. And when the dark side does certain things, they compromise some of their work and use it against them. So I think that was actually being done.
Oh.
Same thing in Disney World, where we had Hurricane Milton come in. It downgraded right at the last before it hit land. And then it went across and it completely flooded Disney World, the tunnel systems and everything. So I think they're being used for good. They can't completely stop them yet, but they can compromise them to a certain extent and use them against the bad guys. So fascinating stuff. So Lynn, tell us a little bit about your memories of going. God, your memories of going underground are pretty intense.
Yeah, they are intense. And that was more of what came through this week, Michael, too. So I'll likely share that for the first time ever on your show today. Whenever I went to the University Medical Center, I was there many times, and there were tons of children, from little ones up to probably 7 or 8 is the oldest. And they would divide us into 2 groups. If you can imagine, so again, you have photographic memories. So when the memories of the university came back, it was very simple to Google it, know exactly where it was, the buildings. I saw them before I even researched it. I knew where I was and where I was going. So this happened, it started in the Performing Arts Building. So if you can picture one of those, all the glass outside and the children. So when you go in, there are people at the tables, like a performing arts event, checking the children in, sorting them by the ones that had a home to go to and the ones that did not. And so I went into the group of the ones that had a home to go to. And then we went backstage, and I saw the little girl in me would call them the money changers. They had the tables set up like that, folding tables, like at events where you exchange money. And so the pedophiles would pay to come in. And then as children, we would all go on stage then and we would perform. So it was a child slave auction. And then the pedophiles would purchase us. And then we'd be taken to a gym. And in the gym at night, there would be rows and rows and rows of beds where the children would be. And then all night long, you could hear the pedophiles giggling and walking between the children and doing what pedophiles do. And then when that was over, we'd be taken underground to the labs, where there was the experimentation on the children. And I remember those that did not have a home to go to, they were put on the metal gurneys, like surgical tables, and they were no bedding or anything, and they would have tubes coming out of them for the adrenochrome harvesting. And the Nazi scientists, if everyone remembers in the concentration camp, they did not use anesthesia. They are not like us. They enjoy that. So there was no anesthesia used while they did the adrenochrome harvesting. And then after that would come the live organ harvesting until the little ones were gone. I call it execution. Frankly, I want to change the terminology of what we're talking about. I call it execution. Then those of us that had homes to go to, they used dental chairs. And so to this day, I have a hard time in dentist's office, but getting better. But there were CIA agents there, and men in suits, and then the medical staff, doctors, nurses, med techs. They were fully gowned like a surgical team would be, and I was hooked to, I mentioned the wires, the tubes. It'd be like when people get EKGs today, monitors hooked up. Huge flat screen TV with other people watching in the background as everything happened. And it was, I was subject to the adrenochrome harvesting too, and different forms of torture while they would try to see what would happen inside my mind during those things.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Now, Catherine Austin Fitts, she was in the Bush administration, and she's talking about a $21 trillion black budget that's used for these underground dumps. And she talks about everything you ladies are talking about, and maybe a little bit more, because they're actually breeding children under there on purpose for a lot of these programs. Did either one of you discover or encounter that?
Well, sort of to add on to what Lynn said, I was used often. The satanic rituals would involve me being completely paralyzed and aware of everything, but unable to fight, and then being raped while I had to watch other children being killed, and the other children would be cut apart, and of course, by that time I was completely dissociated in another planet, so that I remember more about the dissociated adventure than being smeared, absolutely covered with the blood of these other children, which gave me so much guilt. And I was always wondering why I lived and they died. And I think Lynn just said it. I had a home to go to. My parents were making money off of me being used in this way, and the other children had no homes to go to. And there is a place in the archive that the CIA just released, where they write little notes to each other saying, we really can't keep using American citizens in this way, because those kids, some of them might grow up and they might sue us. And so their conclusion out of these cute little notes they wrote to each other was they would start bringing in foreign children. And this is the beginning of mass kidnapping and bringing kids across the southern border. Like and this was in the early 60s. So, wow. And we just saw an admitted 300,000 children brought across the southern border. And the thing is that they decided that, they brought children from all over the world, and you can bet that children that are coming across the border now are probably a high percentage from Ukraine. Anywhere there's war or conflict, they're probably Palestinians and Ukrainians. Anywhere where children are vulnerable, they're collecting children. But then they come across the border in the no home category. And there was a conscious decision that how to make the American public accept this. And they decided that it would be okay if they were all called Mexicans. And so it became like a psyop to condition the American mentality to accept that it was okay to sacrifice Mexicans. And we saw this when they came across the southern border, 300,000 children. They had to admit to it. A whistleblower produced the documents, produced the $47 million contract that was awarded to a van company in Virginia. And then they claim they don't know where the kids go. Right. Of course they know where they went. It's the same van company they were using back when I was involved in this. But then they're all listed as Mexicans. And so their attitude is, oh, no, it's all right. they're just Mexicans. So that's not all right. Nothing about that is all right. But that came from a decision made in 1963, and it's in those papers. So there's so much in there that relates to the horrible sins that are being carried out now. But yeah, a huge difference in whether you had a home to go to.
Wow, incredible. Now, there's a report I'm looking at right now. It says scientists sound alarm over magnetic nanoparticles in COVID vaccines that enable mind control. Now, high tech, I mean, both of you talking about how they were like a screen, you were hooked up and they were like seeing your memories and they're like zapping you. That's stuff that I remember Nikola Tesla was into. And I was like, that was just his imaginations of what could be in the future. But obviously they have that technology and they've had it a long time. Wow. So
Yeah.
how much of the high technology is involved in this?
Oh, right from the beginning. I can remember in the 1950s, they were talking about turning human beings into cybernetic computers.
Wow.
And they didn't even have the word computers. They were Turing machines. But the idea of injecting a metallic matrix inside the human being to turn them into a battery or a transmission device. And I'm sure I would have been injected with all kinds of things. And but no, that I know, I can remember that being tested with that in the 1950s. So
Wow.
55, 56, they were trying that on kids. I don't know. What do you think, Lynn? You're much younger than me.
Yeah, it was, I mean, the experimentation continues. If people think, I know they're hearing Dr. Juliet talk about, many years ago, but if people think it stopped, it has not. And absolutely, because I remember all the experimentation, all the tools and the instruments that were used. And they were experimenting on the children in order to bring that above ground. So what used to be below ground is now above ground. It includes all that, the drugs that we're seeing, the instrumentation, the technology. It was all being devised and developed to where when they were ready to release it, it would be more than ready.
Incredible.
So
Now-
the COVID vaccine, they wanted the graphene oxide into our veins so that they could turn everyone into a human battery.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So you went to Moscow, and
Yes.
you went there when it was still the Soviet Union.
Yes.
So do you think there is a difference between the Soviet Union and the child trafficking that you witnessed and tried to help overcome? That's a great story. I definitely want to read your book about that. That sounds fascinating. But also, now that it's Russia, had things changed at all, or is it still
Completely.
the same?
It's completely different. In
Wow.
fact, we are more like the old Soviet Union than they are. And the
Right.
Russian Federation, it's called Russian Federation because it's made up of over 150 different ethnic groups, but they are united as the country Russia. And it became a deeply religious country. When I was first there, religion was outlawed, and the practices there, because religion was outlawed and there was a complete lack of any kind of church life in the communities, or no one was raised to be a moral person. So it was a wild mess of a country, and they knew that. And one of the things that Putin has done that has made him so popular is that he restored religion. So he's a Christian. He's the first Christian president. The rest have all been Ukrainian Jews, but he was the first actual Russian Slavic Christian president, and he brought back religion. He and not just Christianity, but all religion that existed at the time of the revolution, and when all religion was banished, could legally return. And he's built over 30,000 churches, mosques, synagogues, all religion that's real religion is respected. And interestingly, Russia just passed a law banning Satanism. So
Wow.
making any kind of satanic cults illegal in schools, and specifically addresses the fact that the United States has Satan clubs in schools, and they're looking at the satanic rituals, which are the pedophiles being able to do lewd dances and spread books in grammar schools. They specifically list that in their education, saying this will not be done in Russia. This is completely illegal. Huge support. The public supports the bill. Sort of the less religious and the more satanic and evil the West looks, the more they retreat to traditional religion. And it's completely different. It's an entirely different country. And when I first went there, Ukraine and Russia were pretty much indistinguishable. They were sort of all one thing. And as time progressed, Russia went towards family values and religion and restoring religion and being quite conservative. And Ukraine went the opposite direction. It went completely woke. It's still completely woke, and it's suffering terribly from that, from what I can see. So I was there through all of it. I went there first in 1990. Soviet Union broke up in 92. I was there until 2010, getting a lot of work done on human trafficking.
Yeah, that's I think that right there, just that little piece that you talked about, I think that's one of the keys to overcoming all this is the religion side, real religion, not Satanism, but and absolutely doing away with Satanism. It can't be here. So that's fantastic. Now, while you were there, you set up, you saw the human trafficking girls being, shipped to Denmark and so forth for, sex and all that kind of stuff. So you, along with other Russians, created a rescue system basically that could bring those children back. Tell us a little bit about that, because that's I think another thing that we need to look at, how that's developed.
Has to be done here, and you'd think it would be, people would be open to it, and it would be going, but no, the resistance here is terrible. It's worse than it was there. But we created what we called the Angel Coalition, and it was a coalition of little groups all across not just Russia, but throughout the former Soviet republics that got to be great friends and work together and work to inform communities about the risks of human trafficking. The biggest thing you can do is to avoid it happening. And that's what we need to do, because we don't. And then to rescue and to we worked with international law enforcement and rescued tens of thousands of Russian women and children who'd been trafficked all over North Africa, into Asia, into Europe, and brought them back and helped them get restarted. And by the time I left, Russia had pretty much cut off human trafficking going through Russia. You still had the criminal groups, you still had the international smuggling routes, which are 1,000 years old, that were still bringing children in from Asia. And so it continued, but they did have a significant response. And when I came back to the United States, I was just absolutely shocked that it's actually become such a big business here. And like Lynn said, this is a major source of income in every kind of Black market. And now they're really thriving by perpetuating wars. And this is something that, people talk about, oh, you've got the military industrial complex, which is generating huge profits from wars. You're also getting the social cost, because wherever children become vulnerable, wherever they are not protected by strong parents, they become prey to predators, and they are used. And just like Lynn described, they are used for adrenochrome, sex, prostitution, and cutting up their organs and selling them. And this is going on big time in our country right now, and any attempts to try to stop it are blocked. But there are groups forming, so this will happen. This will happen inside the United States. But the fact that we have to like hide our efforts is just ridiculous. You know, I'm disgusted.
Yeah, it's as a social media guy, this is one of those things that's hard to get out there. First of all, I remember when I first started doing it, maybe about 5 years ago, the people that were bringing on my shows like, no one's going to watch this. No one's going to care. And I'm like, you wait, they will. And sure enough, they did. So a lot of people have been tuning into this and have been awakening to this. But gosh, the amount of information, the scope of it is listening to both of you is just like, it's staggering even for me. And I've been deeply involved in, revealing this. I'm sure you guys could probably go down this rabbit hole a lot deeper. Lynn, what are your thoughts on the rescue efforts and creating a new America where this is no longer acceptable?
That's where we're headed. We're going to be there soon. I just speak that right now. There are efforts that are beginning, and we recently saw, for example, major fundraising at Rev 17 in California, where a facility was purchased and extensive fundraising. And recently, this past couple weeks, I've been asked to be on the advisory board of a new organization called Project Freedom. And the purpose of the organization is to rescue the children and then get them the safe aftercare. And this gentleman right now is in extensive fundraising. He's registering in all 50 states, so he'll get the funding, and then the program will begin. I know in my town, there's a college for sale. And I want someone to buy that college. And I do believe someone will. It's not going to be me because I don't have the money for that. But I know that there's someone out there, who has the funding for that. And I would like to use that to start it as a prototype on how this is done. Years before I started speaking, the first time on your show, Michael, last year, 424, same numbers backward and forward. What used to be will never be again. Before I started speaking for probably 2 or 3 years, God he would give me this plan on the aftercare of the children once they were rescued. I couldn't even speak them, but I would write, and I thought someday. I just got goosebumps head to toe right now. And then the day before I was supposed to be on your show, Michael, I thought, oh gosh, he's going to ask me, how can people contact you? And I can't say my human resource consulting business. That makes no sense. And so the day before, I made the website. And I put all the information, and God told me to call it Q, the letter Q, and the word grit, GRIT.org, after the John Wayne movie, True Grit, where that little girl goes after the bad guys with John Wayne and the little guns, and off they go, right? And that's where we're at. And so, Q stands for quantum, because God's going to get ready to go after this. I know quantum can mean small or huge, but big time. So that's God's plan for the aftercare of the little ones, as well as the wounded adults who've been trafficked or abused, and any form of trauma. Vets. Trauma is trauma. So it's time for just we the people to do this and stay out of our systems. But I think, we're doing this. It's starting. It's beginning. We're starting to see momentum. We need to see a lot more. But a lot can happen in a short period of time. Look what President Trump's done. So a lot can happen.
So with the current political climate, how do you see, because I remember when Trump was in office before, we saw a real crackdown on the human trafficking, especially child trafficking. That seems to be increasing now.
Yeah.
It's a lot of groups are being taken down on a level that's never been seen before, but I'm sure it's still a drop in the bucket. Yeah. So where do you see it progressing from this point?
Well, it has to be, like Lynn mentioned, it has to be a multiple front approach, because, You've got to prevent the human trafficking. You've got to identify who's doing the trafficking. You've got the whole criminal element this is the first time when I came back from Russia, we were under Obama, and there was absolutely no chance of even talking to law enforcement about human trafficking. And Trump has changed that. He's made tremendous changes. And as he hurts their funding network, they're going to put more pushback on him. So kudos to him for standing up to this terrible pressure and for the protection that he's done for children. And honestly, I've been here. I came back from Russia in 2010, and this is the first time after pushing, speaking, broadcasting, writing, trying to get the information out there. It's actually moving in a way where I can feel a shift in energy about the entire issue, because people realize there's something terribly wrong, and they're looking at communities to do things about it. I looked into my own community in the state of Maryland, and there's absolutely nothing. So anybody that has a case or a problem, there's nowhere to go, no one to talk to, nowhere but to get help. And I think that's the state throughout the country. So you have little private nodes being put together, and you have now an effort to create trans-state tribunals, which is something that will be coming up in the next few months. So it's the citizens' grand juries, basically, that will form and start performing all of those functions. This is what we did in Russia. We created tribunals throughout the country, and the tribunals didn't have any official capacity, no power, no ability to prosecute, but they just by their very existence, they brought together law enforcement and education and media and all the elements that need to be part of fighting this. And after a while, then the prosecutors started coming to the tribunals to get information and to get education. And then it got to where the tribunals could call the prosecutors and say, hey, we know there's a trafficking ring right there in Nizhny Novgorod or whatever. And they would act on it. So citizens are going to make this difference. And so those things are happening.
That's so brilliant. I always wondered how that was going to happen. I know that, it's up to we, the people, to do this, but how's that process? Because we can't work within their system. Their system's completely corrupt, and we'll never get anywhere. I thought that maybe reform the judicial system by taking away the corrupt judges, but I just heard they put 230 judges in there during the last administration to just fight Trump and all the actions that he does. So that's brilliant that we would just form our own, organizations and say, okay, these are the criminal activities. It's kind of like our own little Nuremberg trials. We just start doing it.
We can do that.
Yeah. Fascinating. Yeah. I totally.
And actually, in America, we have more power than we did in Russia, because in America, we can go from there to grand juries. And that has the power to compel prosecutors to open investigations. And so I'm just thrilled to see this happening. I mean, I've been pushing this log up the hill for years and years and years, and like the documents coming out have a huge impact. It just hasn't hit yet. And for people like me, it's slow going reading through that 1,200 pages of documents, because I can see my whole life in there. I recognize the places, I recognize the people, I know what they were talking about. I see how things were chosen. I had to accept the fact that I was raised, just like my father said, I was raised for this. I was a product for sale. And so as Lynn says, each time you remember one of these things, it's your entire body that has to go through the remembering of it. And so people that say, oh, false memory, no, a real memory is a total body experience, and there's nothing like it.
Incredible. So, Lynn, last words and how people can reach you.
The best way to reach me is through the website Q, the letter Q, the word grit, grit.org. There's a contact page. You can reach out to me. There's also lots of action steps that people can do. What I recommend they do and not do to help the children. And if you have trauma of any kind or trauma with a loved one, there's all kinds of information in that website, and you can always reach out to me.
Fantastic. Thanks. And Dr. Juliet Engel, how can people, final words, and how can people reach you?
Well, you can reach me on my website, which is www.julietengel, just my name.com, and get my books and read my books. And I will be, as all of these steps come out, as the whole concept of the grand juries and the tribunals begin, Lynn will be able to post all that on her website. And so I'm 76. I'm like just trying to get everything I know out there. In the 10 years I've still got to fight this battle. I'm not giving up, but it's really for younger people to take this and solve these problems.
Yeah, I think you're gonna leave a fantastic legacy. So thanks for your work and staying consistent with it. That's what gets results. That's beautiful. And thank you, both of you, coming on, and hopefully we can have other shows together to discuss this in more detail and see where this progresses.
That'd be great.
Anytime.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you.